So this is the Garmin R10 launch monitor. Now it's by far one of the most popular launch monitors around. And these are the Titleist RCT Golf Balls. They've been specifically made by Titleist to help give you more accurate data indoors when using radar-based launch monitors, especially as it pertains to spin rate. And in today's video, we're going to be testing out the Titleist RCT Golf Balls with the Garmin R10 launch monitor to see if the RCT Golf Balls help to make the R10 even more accurate than it really is, or if you can just save your money and use regular golf balls. So let's get to it. So the Titleist RCT Golf Balls are essentially Pro V1s that have been specifically manufactured by Titleist to be used with radar-based launch monitors. By doing so, it's supposed to give us better spin data when using it indoors. The way it works is that Titleist put metal strips in the ball that the radar can pick up, and then it'll help us give us better accurate numbers. However, the downside is it comes at $65 a box. So what we're going to do today is a little test. We're going to see if the Titleist RCT Golf Balls at $65 a box give us better spin numbers on the Garmin R10, or if we can just use regular golf balls when hitting indoors. And to do so, we're going to be using this $50,000 professional indoor golf simulator as a baseline to see if our numbers are even accurate. So here's how it works. I'm going to hit 3 clubs, my 7-iron, my 9-iron, and my pitching wedge. I'm going to take 5 shots with each club, and I'm going to compare the average spin data on the RCT Golf Balls using the Garmin R10 and compare it to the $50,000 simulator. Then I'm going to do the same thing using regular golf balls to see if it really doesn't matter what golf ball we use with the Garmin R10 because it's accurate nonetheless. So let's get to it.
First up was the 7-iron with the RCT Golf Balls. And on this first shot, the Garmin R10 was showing 5,427 RPM in backspin, while the simulator showed 5,525 RPM. So that's pretty darn close if you ask me. And with his second shot, the Garmin R10 was showing 5,455 RPM, while the simulator was showing 5,292 RPM, so a difference of about 200 RPM. Again, that is really close. And on this third shot, the Garmin R10 was showing 5,335 RPM, while the simulator showed 5,304 RPM, so a difference of 30 RPM. Now that is super close. I can't believe how close that was. So on this fourth shot with the Garmin R10, it was showing an RPM of 4,659, while the simulator showed 5,401, so a difference of about 800 RPM. Now, I don't know why this happened because the launch angle on both of the units were showing within about 0.7, and the carry distance was within less than 2 yards, so I'm not sure why the RPM was off by so much. So a little bit of an outlier here. And lastly, on this fifth shot, the Garmin R10 was showing 5,666 RPM, while the simulator showing 5,857 RPM, so about a difference of 200 RPM, which is pretty darn close if you ask me. Next up was a 7-iron using just regular plain golf ball. Now, on this first shot, the Garmin R10 was showing 6,378 RPM, while the simulator showed 5,181 RPM, so I mean, a difference of 1,200 RPM. Now that's pretty significant on this first shot. On the second shot, the Garmin R10 was showing 5,575 RPM, while the simulator is showing 5,156 RPM. So a difference of about 400 RPM, a little bit closer, and I'm interested to see what happens on this third shot. On the third shot with the 7-iron using a regular golf ball, the Garmin R10 was showing 6,215 RPM, while the simulator is showing 4,969 RPM. So, I mean, a difference of, again, 1,200 RPM. So it seems pretty, drastic so far in the difference between using a regular golf ball and the RCT ball. On this fourth shot, the Garmin R10 was showing 4,976 RPM, while the simulator was showing 4,900. So now it's within range of about less than 100 RPM difference. It just seems very erratic, the difference between the simulator and the R10 when using this regular golf ball. So on to the last shot. Now the Garmin R10 was showing an RPM of 5,976 RPM, while the simulator is showing 5,126. So again, it's off by 800. So let's recap the numbers. On average, the Garmin R10 using RCT golf balls was showing a spin of 5,308 RPM, while the simulator showed an average spin rate of 5,475, so for a difference of 167 RPM. Now that is super close. I mean, that just blows my mind right there. Now let's compare this to the regular golf ball, the 7-iron. The Garmin R10 was showing an average RPM of 5,824, while the simulator showed an average RPM of 5,066. So a difference of about 757 RPM. Now, that right there just shows me that the Titleist RCT golf balls work phenomenally with the Garmin R10. I mean, it puts your RPM within less than 200 from this $50,000 simulator. Now, if you're going to go and use regular golf balls, it's going to be off by almost 800 RPM. So, to me, kudos to Titleist on having this golf ball and to having Garmin being able to use it. I would definitely recommend the RCT golf balls when using it with a 7-iron. Now, I do want to note that I am using the Garmin app and not Awesome Golf for this test, and the reason being is that the Garmin app does have a little bit more issues when it comes to accuracy that I've found, and so I thought let's make it harder on ourselves to see how close this really gets. So with the 7-iron done, we're going to go ahead and move on to the 9-iron. So next up is the 9-iron using the RCT golf ball. And on this first shot, the Garmin R10 showed an RPM of 7,089, while the simulator showed an RPM of 6,693. So it's off about, I would say, 400 RPM on this first shot. On the second shot, the Garmin R10 was showing an RPM of 7,191 RPM, while the simulator showed an RPM of 6,621. So again, it's off about 350 RPM, still pretty close if you ask me. This third shot, the Garmin R10 showed an RPM of 7,509 RPM, while the simulator showed an RPM of 6,649 RPM. So this one's a little weird. You know, it's off by about 900, and I'm not really quite sure why. Now, this fourth shot is looking a lot better. The Garmin R10 was showing an RPM of 6,809, while the simulator was showing an RPM of 6,540. So roughly about 300 RPM. Again, within tolerance, and I'm pretty impressed because it's about 300 RPM. And now we're on for our last shot. The Garmin R10 was showing an RPM of 6,333, while the simulator is showing an RPM of 6,734. So about 400 RPM. Again, pretty close in my book. We're going to go ahead and move on to using a regular golf ball, see how that turns out. And on this first shot, the Garmin R10 was showing an RPM of 6,623, while the sim was showing an RPM of 5,594. So that is a huge difference. About 1,000 RPM difference on this first shot with the regular golf ball. So that's just kind of crazy. But let's go ahead and move on to the next shot. With the second shot, the Garmin R10 was showing an RPM of 6,417, while the simulator was showing an RPM of 5,915. So it's about 500 this time, a little bit closer than the last shot. I'm not sure what happened to that first one. This third shot, with the Garmin R10, it was showing an RPM of 6,605, while the simulator was showing an RPM of 7,491. So even closer in tolerance, this is about 150 RPM difference. On this fourth shot, the R10 was showing an RPM of 7,216, while the simulator was showing an RPM of 6,569. So about 700 RPM. And what I'm starting to see is there's just a lot of, inconsistent numbers here. High, low on every shot. So, and on this fifth and final shot, the Garmin R10 again was looking a lot better with an RPM of 6,629, while the simulator is showing an RPM of 6,310. So here, now we're back to 300 RPM. So, you get these high and low numbers with using this regular golf ball. But let's go ahead and do the recap and see how everything turned out. So to recap what we found with the 9-iron and using the RCT golf balls and the regular golf balls. Now, the average RPM when using the RCT golf ball was 6,986 RPM. And when we use the simulator, the RPM was showing about 6,647 for a difference of about 338 RPM between the two. So that's pretty darn close, in terms of how accurate the RTC balls are working with the Garmin R10. Now, comparing what the RCT golf ball does to the regular golf ball, on the regular golf ball, the Garmin R10 was showing an average RPM of 6,898, and with the simulator showing an average RPM of 6,375, so a difference of about 522 RPM. So, I mean, this right here just shows me that, using the RCT golf ball makes those numbers a lot closer when it terms of RPM than using a regular golf ball. And we did kind of see that before with the 7-iron, because the numbers are just super sporadic with a regular golf ball. So it's cool to see the consistency here on the RCT when using it on the R10. So on to the pitching wedge. On this first shot, the Garmin R10 was showing an RPM of 7,387, while the simulator is showing an RPM of 7,077. So a difference of about 300 RPM, which is pretty darn close. Now, in the second shot, the Garmin R10 was showing an RPM of 5,939 RPM, while the simulator is showing an RPM of 6,999. Now, to be honest, this doesn't make any sense to me because the carry was within 3 yards and the launch angle was within 0.3. So I'm not quite sure why it's off by almost 1,000 RPM difference. This might be an anomaly, but let's go ahead and move on to the next shot. This third shot, the Garmin R10 was showing an RPM of 6,615 RPM, while the simulator is showing an RPM of 6,557. So, you know, it's about 140 difference in RPM, which is really close. Now, this fourth shot, the Garmin R10 was showing an RPM of 4,980, while the simulator is showing an RPM of 6,778. So, I mean, a difference of 1,800 RPM. Now, that's a lot. So on this fifth and final shot, the Garmin R10 was showing an RPM of 7,054, while the simulator was showing an RPM of 7,281. I mean, all in all, I think the RCT balls look great on the Garmin R10. But let's go ahead and move on to using a regular golf ball, see what happens. And so we're on to our final test, using a pitching wedge on a regular golf ball. And on this first shot, the Garmin R10 was showing an RPM of 7,748, while the simulator was showing an RPM of 6,960. So, you know, a difference of about 800 RPM, you know, pretty consistent with what we've been seeing with the regular golf ball. On the second shot, this is a little bit of a mishit on my part. The Garmin R10 was showing an RPM of 5,142, while the simulator is showing an RPM of 4,370. The carries are almost the exact same, but the launch angles are off by about 3 degrees. This third shot was right on line. The Garmin R10 was showing an RPM of 7,157, while the simulator is showing an RPM of 7,209. So, you know, a difference less than 100. I'm actually pretty impressed that it came out as close as it did. On this fourth shot, the Garmin R10 was showing a RPM of 7,987, while the simulator showed an RPM of 6,239. So, I mean, that's a pretty big spread here on this one of 1,700 RPM difference, which is crazy because the last one we were within 100. And we're on to our fifth shot. The Garmin R10 was showing an RPM of 6,850, while the simulator is showing an RPM of 6,703. So off by 200 yards again. So again, we're right on target. It's just so weird to me that, like, we get one really bad one, we get one really good one, we get one really bad one, we get one really good one. So it shows the inconsistency on using a regular golf ball over the RCT. Let's go ahead and compile these numbers and see what happened. So to recap, the average RPM on the Garmin R10 using an RCT golf ball was 6,395 RPM. And with the simulator, it was showing an RPM of 6,938. So for a difference of 543 RPM, which, you know, is pretty close when you consider that this is a $50,000 simulator and this is a $600 unit. And now on to using a regular golf ball. The Garmin R10 was showing an average RPM of 6,976 RPM, while the simulator was showing an average RPM of 6,296. So a difference of 680 RPM. What I find really interesting is that as we go up in the loft of the club, the averages get closer and closer. So, you know, here again, the RCT golf ball is a little bit more accurate when using it with the Garmin R10 when comparing the RPM. But, I mean, we're only off by about 150 RPM between this and a regular golf ball. So it's really interesting to see that, you know, as we progress from a 7-iron to a 9-iron to a pitching wedge, that, you know, they get closer and closer. So it'd be kind of cool to do a test to see, you know, using a more higher lofted club, if, you know, does the RCT golf ball work better than using a regular golf ball. But in this case, I would definitely say that yes, the RCT golf ball does give you better numbers when using it with the Garmin R10 than using a regular golf ball.
So a big thanks to our friends at Indoor Golf Design for letting us use their indoor golf simulator today. To be honest, I am just blown away with the Garmin R10. the carry distance are within 5 yards or less on every shot in comparing to a $50,000 simulator. I'm really impressed with this device, and I recommend to anyone out there looking for an affordable launch monitor that's simple and easy to use and that works great indoors. Now, I got mine from our good friends at playbetter.com. They're huge supporters of the show and of our community, so there's a link down below to check out the Garmin R10. But if you already own a Garmin R10 and you're looking to get more accurate numbers, then be sure to check out this video right here where I give you 4 easy steps on how to get perfect numbers each and every time. And I'll see you in the next video.